Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. This is Kelly with Edit With Me, and today we're going to be working on this precious baby boy's photo to take it from this to this. Alrighty, cue the intro. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day today. I sure am. It is a very peaceful Sunday where I am, and a great day to edit some images. So I am going to be working on this sweet baby boy's image here. There are some gentle things I'd like to do to it, so I figured you guys might like to see how I edit some newborn stuff. My style is fairly different than the normal studio photographer. All of my work is done in home. So, with that comes certain problems like white balance and all of that. So I want you to come along with me on this journey. Today we're going to be discussing a big, huge topic of love. And before I get started on that big old topic, I am going to kind of just bring you quickly up to speed. Today we are going to be working from raw on this image. So I know that there's a lot of you that want to see a lot of editors doing it raw. With no presets at all. So I am going to show you how I do that and start to gain your confidence in that area as well. So we're going to abandon the presets and we are going to dive into this baby and do it completely by hand. So I am going to start you with our few reminders and then get into our big old topic today. Okay, so if you've been with me for any amount of time, you know I like to go all the way to the bottom and work my way up. That's opposite of most people, but I find that the changes at the bottom affect how I feel overall of the whole image, and that helps me fine-tune lighting and color and all of that. So this is completely raw. I have it set in camera neutral on Lightroom, which I'm not a huge fan of their profiles, but that one seems to be the most true to life to me. Also, when my images import into my Lightroom, for whatever reason, Lightroom changes them to slightly darker. So I didn't do anything to this image because I wanted you guys to see all the steps. I'm going to add just 0.3 exposure here because that is a lot more true to life of how I shot it. So, all right, we're going to go down here and I'm going to start off by removing chromatic aberration. If you don't know what that is, do a quick Google search. It's the bleeding between two colors, and it's what adds to a little bit of fuzzy imagery. All right, I'm going to add my typical 80, I don't know, we'll do 89% sharpening and pull up some noise reduction. Now, remember, if you don't know what anything is, you can always play with the sliders and see. So we are going to get going on this. I am going to add just a small amount of texture, pull down the clarity slightly, push up that grain, and I really like kind of grainy images for in-home. So, all right, let's dehaze him a tiny bit. And what dehaze does is a lot of people confuse it for clarity. Or contrast. It's not either. It's basically taking away the amount of light in an image. So if you look, you can still see here, his fingers are in focus and stuff, so it's not clarity, but it basically eliminates the amount of light in an image. So if I were to go all the way here, you see everything is really, really dark, right? I like to add just a tiny bit because I feel like it gives it a little bit more oomph, especially in in-home sessions where you don't have complete control over the sun. Okay, so as I'm working on this coloring, you can follow along with me here and see what I'm doing, but I'm going to dive into the topic of love today. Who is in love out there? There are so many different forms of love, right? So many different forms of love. A lot of us think that to be in love, you have to be romantically involved with somebody, right? You have to be in a relationship. I don't necessarily want to talk about the type of love that is in a relationship. We all have them. Well, not all. A lot of us have it. Some of us don't. But I want to talk more about love towards your fellow man. It could be as easy as lingering in a conversation with a cashier or someone who brings your Instacart order or something like that. Love is a very tricky subject. And honestly, all you need is love. That every time I hear that, it makes me think of, I know it was a Beatles song, but it makes me think of Moulin Rouge, where he's yelling and he's trying to convince her on the roof of that elephant to sleep with him and start a relationship with him. And it keeps playing in my mind, right? So, but I think we misconstrue love as humans. We've been taught so much that, we need someone to complete us and, oh, you just wait till you're in love. It's so different. I feel like we don't understand the expression of love like we should. I will go out on a limb here. I love my clients. Now, does that mean I'm sending them never-ending messages of admiration and obsession? No, of course not. Does that mean I'm writing sonnets to them and dreaming of them when I'm sleeping? Of course not. But what that does mean is I go the extra step. I go the extra mile. I make sure that things are right. I am fair in my dealings with them. I'm excited to speak with them when they text me. And I think that those steps really, really make a huge difference in their happiness, in your worldview, and all of those things. It's such a shame that we live in a world right now where there's so much anger and hate and all of that. And I'm not going to preach hippy dippy love, but it's so disheartening to me because there's so many different areas that you can be an example to your fellow man just by how you treat them. And one of my favorite love quotes is actually from Pride and Prejudice. It's from Jane Austen. And it is just so simple, but she's talking about the kind of love she wants to have in her life, right? And what she says is completely and perfectly incandescently happy. I try to live my life like that. Not all the time, obviously, as my husband can probably attest. There's arguments and stuff, but for the most part, I live my life completely incandescently happy. I want to be a pillar of love for people. I want whoever is in my sphere of, sorry, I'm just really focusing on this tint. I'm having issues with the baby skin tone, if you couldn't tell. I want people that are in my sphere of influence. I want them to feel just by being around me that I love them, that I'm working really hard, to show love and affection to people. So, we have such a great platform as photographers to really preach that. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing from their work is that feeling of love you get when you look at an image. Oh, that's so much better. Okay, I added a little bit of green back in. Okay, we're going to pull this into Photoshop and do a little bit of surgery here. So I think that's what a lot of people are missing in their dealings with their clients, in their imagery. They're missing a sense of love. They're trying so hard to strive for perfection in expression or pose or something like that they're missing out this chance to just sit back and let what's going on in the images, what's going on in this session unfold. One of my favorite things to capture, as we're chatting here, one of my favorite things to capture is just spontaneous moments between couples in my sessions. The look of overwhelm or something like that happens in a session, like when a toddler melts down and the parents share that kind of conspiring, look at each other. That to me is so important, and I go after it. I go after it when I'm shooting because it's such a beautiful thing to have happen. Okay, we're going to pause our conversation really quick so I can kind of bring you up to speed here. I am going to do some cleaning up. I'm going to do some sharpening. I'm going to do some removal of these hairs, and I'll kind of chat how I'm doing that as we go. I am going to start where I always start with my universal prep. That is just a quick action that I have created. And what it does is it adds a small amount of portraiture and sharpening to the image. So it saves me some time having to go in and run that on every image that I process. So when I'm doing something in Photoshop, I like to talk about what I notice first and deal with that first. I don't like these hairs coming from this bunny, and part of it is it's a mohair bunny, so it's really soft and textured, but it tends to get a little bit sloppy. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean that up off of his face. I'm going to take care of just these teeny tiny little spots that bother me. I don't really like to edit texture on baby skin, but I do like to take away maybe flecks of milk or things that don't belong on the baby. So, all right, let's get started here. I'm going to start right away with this hair. I'm going to try my healing brush, but you'll find as you go along, healing doesn't always fix the issues. Sometimes it works absolutely brilliantly, and sometimes it creates more of an issue than you had in the beginning. It seems to me like it's working really well on this image though, so I'm going to stick with it until I can't anymore. With healing, a lot of people make the mistake of just going in and doing like little dots or circles, or they come in and they select the entire thing they want to heal, and they're upset when it color samples something weird. I find if you do it in small bursts, the healing brush actually responds much better and you get a much closer match to what's going on. I'm going to use my bracket keys to open that up. Now you can see the healing is just kind of blending here. I don't love that. So I'm going to come in with my clone, and I'm going to clone the texture of the baby's cheek back in where the healing brush took it out. Now that's the type of stuff that's going to bring your image from normal and boring to wow, like look how crisp and how sharp that is, because a lot of people may not have the eye to even notice that that happened. Okay, so that is done and taken care of, and that is looking really good. I am going to come up here and get my healing brush, my spot blemish tool, and I'm just going to take these teeny tiny little white specks off the baby's skin. Those are not normally there, so I'm going to remove those. And he had this little tiny like eye booger here. Let's see if this is going to, it worked perfectly. Awesome. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see I did not mess with the texture of his skin. You can still see it's got that little newborn softness here. I'm not a huge fan of how soft his face is from the portraiture. So I'm actually going to go back in here and apply my Smart Sharpen. And I'm going to add a little bit more sharpening back into that because sometimes portraiture goes a little bit heavy-handed for me. And it smooths it out slightly too much where you start, instead of getting portraiture effect, you start getting a problem with your clarity. And I dislike clarity slider. And when people mess with their clarity slider, it always reminds me of like those 80s glamour shots, you know, where like your skin is like blurry. I don't know. It's just not a good look. Okay. Let's zoom that back out so you guys can see. It wasn't a huge change, just enough. All right. I am going to add a little bit of light in here. And I'm going to do that by using, where did it go? Here it is. Skin and Background Glow. It is an action. And honestly, I can't remember where I picked it up from. I believe it's Sujata Setia, but I can't remember now. So, okay, I am going to go all around the background, and I'm just going to apply this at probably 30% opacity. It looks to me like I maybe even need to do a little bit more than that. This is kind of how I emphasize, the natural glow that was there from the window. I like to add this. Oh, come on now. Sorry, when my screen is recording, my arrows are so much slower. Okay, so it kind of adds the emphasis of natural lighting, and it kind of just adds a tiny touch of light and brightness where you can see that. And I'm going to bring that right over him a little bit. And actually, I really am enjoying the amount of shadows we have on this side, so I don't really want to play with that at all. You can see by looking down here, all it did was add where the light was naturally coming in through the window. So, okay, I am going to flatten that and bring it back into Lightroom. Now you notice I'm not a huge fan of how soft this is making it look, so I'm going to actually undo that. And I think the reason was I was chatting with you and my computer was slow and I wasn't paying attention. So when I apply this, I am going to stick to my lower opacity. Now, here's the beauty of shooting in RAW or editing RAW, my friends. Don't be afraid to mess up. I mess up all the time. And instead of editing it out, I'm going to keep it in. And I don't know if that to you bothers you, but I think it's important that we be real with each other and we show each other when we mess up, right? Not everything is a perfectly edited YouTube video. When you're editing, it can be kind of sloppy. It can be messy, and that's okay. You know, you always want to be okay with making your mistakes. Going back to our love thing, you want to add love to yourself too. And that's just as easy as your interior monologue. You know, no one is going to say nastier things about you than you say to yourself. And I learned that a long time ago. When I first started, that looks so much better. Okay. When I first started dealing in small business, I learned that I was my own worst enemy. And I don't want to function like that anymore. We should be in our own corners, right? We should be our cheerleaders. We should be the ones who are buoying ourselves up to accomplish hard things, not necessarily ripping ourselves down. But like, oh, why do you suck so bad? Why is your lighting so terrible? You know, things like that. Watch your inner monologue, because that becomes what you start to believe for yourself too. Okay, so I'm going to import that back from Photoshop, and I'm noticing when I bring it back in, it's slightly too warm for my taste. I don't love how yellow it is on the baby skin, so I'm going to pull it down a little bit and push up my purple slightly. I don't want it to feel cold, but I want it to be true to life for sure. Okay, now, one thing that's really bothering me, I am noticing some yellowing over here in this blanket. And I know that that blanket is completely white. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to mess with my color mixer. I'm going to select my yellows, and I want to pull my yellows out of this because I want my white to be actually white. So I am going to mess with that. There we go. That is so much better. All right, now you can see everybody. I am going to pull this in, go to our before, boop. Come on, show original. There we go. And here is our after. Super easy touches, but that's what makes it all the difference in the world. All right, everybody. If no one has told you today, let me be the first one too. I think that you are wonderful, and you need to love yourself, love your clients, love those around you, and be a beacon of positivity for yourself, most importantly, but for the world in your influence. Just remember, you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, and the world needs your lens. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.